All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited to be here, actually. And this is our debut edition of one of our many knowledge sharing sessions that we're going to be having subsequently at BuyLetLive. But before we go into today's webinar, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamuno Elizabeth. I am the head of sales here at BuyLetLive. And BuyLetLive is a real estate marketplace that connects buyers and sellers in the real estate industry together. And with me today is Dr. Seyi, and we will be discussing property demolitions in Nigeria. This is an ongoing, controversial conversation, and we believe that beyond the sensationalization of the current demolitions, we need to inform people about the truth, you understand, the lies, and how to protect your investments in Nigeria as a real estate investor in general. So Dr. Seyi here with me is, first of all, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Seyi. We are so excited to have you here. All right. So Dr. Seyi Olufemi. All right. Dr. Seyi Olufemi is an accomplished medical practitioner, actually, and he pivoted into publishing, and then from the publishing company, he sold that to join a health tech company. And that has moved on to becoming an accredited health maintenance organization that has even been sold or bought and by Green Bay Healthcare Services. And Dr. Oluseyi has now gone on to co-found the renowned Casafina Capital Group that we all know of right now. So thank you once again, Dr. Oluseyi. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So Dr. Oluseyi, would you like to, give us a brief overview of the current state of real estate in general in the country before we go into demolitions, because people are very concerned about demolitions. We don't want to scare people. So can we just do a brief overview of real estate in Nigeria? What the true cost of demolition is, what causes it, why are houses being demolished, and if possible, if you've had a personal experience with that, you can share that with us as well.
Well, thank you very much, Tamuno. That's a lot of question, lumped into a single one. Because when you say the current state of real estate in Nigeria, I'd like to, first of all, take a look at it from the economic side of things. First of all, that asset remains one of the best you can invest in at this moment. In terms of inflation, devaluation, there are three basic assets you can invest in. Commodities, equities, and then real estate. Real estate is much more available and require less technical skill, quote and unquote. But the other side, let's quickly move on to the core of the conversation today, which is demolition and and the pervasive sentiment within the environment. One of the things I made clear when we were having a conversation before the start of this webinar was to say, look, if you do what is right and you comply appropriately, it's going to be difficult to demolish your house. I'm not saying that as someone who has not made that mistake before. I'm saying that as somebody who's learned that your documentation and your compliance can actually make your investment, your real estate investment, safe and demolition proof. But we tend to think otherwise. So that's where I would just want to, because I'm sure that we're still going to get into several conversations about the things you need to do. But by and large, if you comply, if you get all your documentation correctly, you are not likely to actually have that experience, all things being equal.
Interesting. And this is speaking from a professional point of view, an experienced point of view, right?
Definitely.
Of course, as a name in the industry as well. So yes, getting into the topic right away. And this has been happening, or this has been in the news for a while now. There's been recent demolitions, especially in Lekki on the island and a lot of people are panicking and they want to know how to safeguard or protect their investments, especially those who either have houses or properties in these areas or have interest in buying properties in this area. So can you tell us, what to look out for? Like you said, if you protect yourself with the necessary documents, if you have all the required information, you would avoid it. But then again, there are some persons who have CFOs and all of that and still have their properties being demolished. So what other reasons are there for people having their properties demolished?
Okay, let's break it down. The first thing I usually tell people, if you want to actually invest in real estate, try as much as possible to go through professionals, listing platforms, those who are brokerage, some of the services you offer. That's the first one. But beyond that, let's assume that you decided I want to do it and I want to go through the process, or you want to buy from someone. What are those things you need to? The beginning of any construction is land. So the first step you want to do is to make sure that the ownership of that land is not in question. Because even if you comply and you build on somebody else's land or a land that has litigation that the ownership is being contested, and unfortunately you end up being on the side of the person that is not the owner, no matter the structure you build, except if the original owner is magnanimous, they can pull it out. What the person needs to do is to write appropriate petitions to the task force set up for those kind of cases. They will pull down the house and say, there's nothing you can do. So let's assume that the land is yours and you've gotten the land, as a CFO, fantastic. Now, the first thing is you want to get your building permit. A building permit says this is what you want to build. It's been approved, right? And, just those basic things. And these are the things you would do during the process of construction. Because when you're building, part of what you're supposed to do is there are specific stages. You're supposed to take samples to specify government, they test your concrete. So if you want to avoid this issue of demolition, the first thing is get your permit, right? Now, permit is not just from one parastatal. Now, if it's the land that is not close to canal, that is not close to just dry land somewhere there, the most important thing you need to do is your planning permit. Inside your planning permit, there are some other permits, the state certification. But once you get your permit, you're good. There are some other things they would expect you to get. One is, you need to get your safety clearance. You need to pay for material testing, which is where you take your samples to. If you do that, that is stage one. Stage two is compliance with what is inside that permit. Now, when you are getting a permit, you are going to submit drawing. So if you are there, you want to build and you are given a contractor. First of all, you want to have the architectural drawing, the structural drawing, the mechanical and electrical drawing, and so on and so forth. If it's larger, layout of what you're building. Once you have all those ones and it's approved or stamped and screened, and then when you get on site, you want to, as much as possible, comply to what is, specified in the drawing that was approved. The problem, and it's happened to us, we've made that mistake before. The problem is sometimes you get a permit to build a structure that is this wide, and then you build a structure that is twice that. So those are some of the issues. So if you comply, you are not likely to have challenge when it comes to demolition. I'm still going to, there's a caveat. Now, if you are, and I'm going to get there, if you are within an area that is close to drainage or body of water, or maybe let's say canal, which is the common one that, that's been in the news. Beyond getting the planning permit, you are supposed to get what you call a drainage clearance, right? A drainage clearance says you are not within the setback of that drainage. You are not close to whatever structure that they're trying to preserve. My very wild guess is that a lot of the demolition that people are, that is making around these days, particularly those who are close to canal, is because there was contravention in that area, right? So, and to be fair on government, if there's flood anywhere, we all actually say, oh, what is the government doing? Sometimes those are decisions would need to be taken, sentiment aside. But if you comply, let's say that you get your drainage clearance and you observe this mandatory setback, it's going to be tough for anyone to actually demolish your house, because it means that you can get legal redress. And I'm one person that I've seen over and over that people actually win judgment against the state. So nobody would even touch your house. Once you have your permit, once you comply, you have your drainage clearance, you comply. It's not likely to happen that way. The other little reasons why there might be, because sometimes when you're building, even if you have your permit, exuberance will happen on the side of the official. So they come in and say, oh, where is this document? Where is that document? And then once they do that and you don't have it, they can just shut the site and say stop work. I'm sure we've seen stop work or in like 1 million sites all over Lagos. And a lot of you are supposed to now present the document and then show that you are, you've complied, and then they will reopen the site. Some people don't bother to do that. They just continue, and then they break the seal or the chain or whatever it is. Sometimes these agencies will do what you call token demolition. They took some part of it, So that's basically so compliance and documentation is the key. You must do it. If you don't know it, get specialists that can help you to do that.
Okay.
I don't know if I've covered the basic things you wanted, based on what you said, so that it's not too long-winded.
Yes. So I hear you. I hear you say compliance and documentation. And for me, assuming, I'm just venturing into the real estate space, one of the common documents I hear of is CFO. And most times, once people find out that this property has a CFO, they are okay. Is that a good enough document? Because I believe a CFO gives you some leverage if your property is to be demolished, for example. If you have a CFO, don't you think that that's enough document to start with, to avoid demolition as a property owner?
No, it's not. CFO is like entirely different from planning permit. What the CFO does is to say that you are the officially recognized owner of that plot of land. You can have your plot of land, not build anything. So if you now want to build on that land, you will now present that this is what I want to build. Can you approve for me? That will now be approved. And then you build in compliance with what has been approved. If you are the owner of the CO and you get approval to build 5 floors and you build 12 floors, it can be demolished. You understand? So there are 2 separate things. So the only thing that the CFO does is say, look, officially you are the owner of this particular document, so you can do anything with the land. You can decide to whatever it is you want to do with the land. It has nothing to do. Well, it might have, because sometimes in the process of processing your permit, getting your permits, they will require evidence that you are the owner of the house, so that they don't give you approval on a land that is not yours. You understand what I mean? So by and large, CFO is equivalent to a governor's consent is as good a legal position as a certificate of occupancy. I'm sure maybe we'll ask the question of what's the difference between the two, but those are legalese though. They are valid documents from the government saying we recognize that this land is yours, has been transferred to you. But that one comes with its own controversy. So let's not get into that at the moment. So it has nothing to do with demolition. You can be the CFO until your house will still be demolished.
All right.
Okay.
I'm sure that's going to be new information to a lot of people on this call, because I have a CFO and you're telling me that I may still be at risk of my property being demolished, considering the fact that a lot of us Nigerians, and to be fair, these processes take long. To be fair on people who buy lands, these processes, approval, they take long, they cost money, and people just build with the hopes that by the time, before 2 years elapse or 3 years elapse, they would have gotten all of these documents ready from the government. Now, assuming I now have these documents you've mentioned, planning permits, safety clearance, material testing, what else? And so on and so forth, drainage clearance, because I had to write them all down. Right. Assuming I have all of this, do I still stand? Am I still at risk of having my property demolished? Or, and if so, what can I do to avoid this? Because I don't think anybody here on this call will want to invest in something that would collapse or that will be brought down in minutes, something that took you years to gather the money, build, and then in less than 2-3 hours, everything comes crashing.
You know, I've been in the business for a while. One of the major regrets of my life and business when it comes to real estate is not having the patience to go through the rigor of getting my documentation right. And once you understand the system, you can actually, and you go through your screening. It's not as long as people think. I've made that mistake before, and there is no time that I've made that mistake that I don't come back to regret it. You understand? It's costed me a lot. It's nearly destroyed what we were doing. So this is one note of warning I'm going to say here, that be patient enough. There are technical people, there are consultants that can help you. They know the specification, they know they have those details. So they will guide you and they can shorten the process for you. But please get your document. Now, 2, if you get your documentation right, the second part of it is compliance. It means that, and we all do it. For example, there are some roads that the setback in front should be 6 meters. And then you do 3 meters, right? Now, the reason why those setbacks, let's say, leave the setback of 6 meters is because in case there is need to expand the road, there's still enough space and it will not touch your house. So the setback, nobody would approve anything less than what is the standard setback for you. But because you want to build larger houses, right? Because you want to build larger houses, you now consume part of the 6 meters, you only leave 3 meter setback. And then few years later, say, look, we're expanding this road. So then how they expanded that, of course, it's going to affect that. But let's say that, you get your documentation right, you comply. If there's going to be a demolition for overriding public interest, then there is some level of compensation. I'm not saying the compensation is exactly the way it should be or whatever it is, but there's usually a bit of compensation. And it's not as bad as people think. I'm saying all this in case somebody's on the call saying, look, I don't work with Lagos State government, but I've learned, I've seen, and I've interacted with, because these guys are individuals, they are people. Some of them have good intention, they want, but there's a planning, there's what you call like a master plan. You understand? The road, the places that if in the future will be this, will be that. So you need to understand those nuances and then comply when you eventually, if you do, there are a lot of minor other issues, but significantly you've covered 98 to 99% of bases, right?
All right. Thank you so much. You mentioned something which is very key and important. You said there are people who can guide you in this process. And I'd like you to specify, because some people think that those people may be their relatives, family members, or, friends.
Okay.
Right. So and I know that people visit platforms, they think that they're doing a research by just visiting a platform, checking it out, and then from then make informed decision just online without speaking to a professional. When you say people, are you speaking to professionals, real estate agents and developers, or platforms like ourselves, that can assist or advise you with all the necessary information you need to, to start your building project?
Okay, let me just be very clear. There's something you guys are doing that I like. It's not just enough to have a listing platform. You have a listing platform and you vet your properties. But I also know that, there's a brokerage component to what you do, right?
Yes, we do that.
What it means, beyond putting vetted properties, people can also now approach you and say, look, I want to get this property. Why don't you be the liaison? So that allows you to do a bit of due diligence, a bit of check. So you increase the chance that the investment will be successful. So even though I've not been paid for this particular advert, I would encourage, if anybody is listening and you're at the point of making that decision, you want to go through this platform. And beyond just going to check what is listed, you also want to engage them actively as a broker. I was joking earlier, the real estate is as significant and as solid an investment as equities or stock or bonds or whatever. Now, I don't know anybody that will want to buy bonds and then we'll just call Jamiu or Latifa or Lati in the village to say, go and buy the stock of Zenith Bank.
100 million.
So why would you now call Jamiu, your cousin, to go and build a house for you? So if you want to buy stock today, you call your stockbroker. If you want to buy a property, call your broker. It saves a lot of heartache. Now, when I was referring to the fact that sometimes if you work for specially, it makes your journey easier. As a developer, I used to think that if I pay consultants to do my documentation, to walk through the process for me, is a waste of money. But I realized that the pain, the ache, and the loss at the end of the day much more than outweighs the cost that this specialist would charge you.
And then you learn the process as well, because some lies people will tell you that you need this, you need that, but because you've done it yourself, you also realize that no, this is not necessary. I've done this before. These are the key important things that I need. Exactly.
You're correct.
Exactly. Dr. Seyi, pardon me, I have to take you back because again, as you're speaking, I'm learning. You mentioned something, and I like it because it's always good to hear people who have made the mistakes. For you, like they say, the best way to learn is learning from other people's mistakes. And you mentioned that, you've made this mistake before and then you practically had to start all over again, with your building. What were the key mistakes you made? What was the experience? Was it a demolition? Was it a land grabbing issue? What exactly was this mistake and what did it lead to? And what key lessons can we pick from there that we can learn from to avoid pitfalls of our own?
Well, let me start by saying that, first of all, I think it was real estate that made me realize that I was a very stubborn and sometimes very impatient person, right? So when you say coconut head, I've always that kind of thing. So, but I think it taught me to have a softer scalp or score. That is it. I've experienced the old gamut of it, and it took me a while to. My team, particularly at a point, had to call me. That's my partner, my team say, look, guy, you can't keep doing this one. We need to get this in right? So I've experienced demolition. I've experienced stoppage for non-compliance. And then, of course, when you have those two, what it does is it can decimate your business as a whole. Let me use an example. One of our projects was, we're just beginning to resolve the issue now, was delayed for donkey period of time, right? Because of contention on the land. And by the time we were getting to the end of that back and forth, the cost of construction was more than the cost of the price we charged for the builders. So what do you do? And then, the options were very clear. Should we just abandon the project and jump back to Canada or whatever it is? That was a strong, because it was losses running into over $1 billion. So Japa was looking very attractive at that time. The second option was to just face it, resolve it, go look for money, build, because it's not the fault of your off-takers, right? So it's your fault that maybe you didn't do that. Yes, we did, but what do we do? So those are hard lessons from not doing due diligence. I wish maybe you would ask me a question about due diligence, because people don't understand that due diligence starts from the streets and gets into the documentation with institutions that do that. So I learned that very hard lesson when it comes to due diligence. Due diligence is not even just about checking, is the document appropriate? It's also checking to be sure that the area where you're building is safe for building. We invested far back in 2015, 16, 17, close to 200-300 million in a plot of land that was a floodplain. And when the flood started, I kid you not, it was Coincidentally, the first time I saw the flood, I was going with a cooperative group. They had a draft of about 20 or 30 million with them. They were supposed to present officially to me on site and snap. So you can see, and we needed a canoe to go to site. So I stood by the edge of the water and I was watching the draft walk away. Like that's about the saddest thing of my life. Like, he knows this. So you need to do those due diligence. But beyond just doing those due diligence, you need to comply. Be patient enough to get your title. For those, I'm sure that what you can do, and this is a very great platform, is there should be sessions where we talk about, what is the process of getting your permit. So people tend to think it's that complicated. It could be complicated because of bureaucracy of civil service. But once you understand the works of it, and there are efforts to actually reform that system from our interaction. It's a bit better than it used to be. It's a bit better than it used to be. Yeah. It's a bit better than it used to be. So you want to go through it, you want to get your permit, and then you want to build according to I messed up along those chain. And honestly, I think we would be like, we're about 2 years behind because of this mission. Yeah. Unfortunately, they just can't sack me. Ideally, they should. If it was they would sack the person, right? So I'm trying to make America. And so please, if you're listening to me, you want to take your time to do all those things that needs to be done. All right. So I don't know. I think I'm winded when I'm talking about this particular issue. Sorry.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you so much. Before I continue, if there's anyone on this webinar that would like to ask questions, you can put your question in the chat box, and then I would read it to Dr. Seyi. He can also see it, and then we can take your questions after now. And so, yeah, thank you. The chat box is, if you're using your phone, it's just below your screen, and then click on the 3 dots, you see the chat box there. If you're using your laptop, it's just on top of your screen, you see the chat icon. Thank you very much. So in all of this, what you're saying in essence is investing in real estate is still a big deal, and it still has its returns, right? For starters like myself, because I'm also looking to get a property soon, hopefully, right? For starters like myself, what do you think I should look out for? Should I look out for where I can just live, or look out for where I can get return on investment? Because I feel like when you're chasing return on investment, the processes take longer. But if you just want to build to live, I think the processes take shorter time. Or is it the same process it takes? Also, another thing, residential and commercial areas, right? Are they already mapped out for people? Because I believe that there's some persons that are not allowed to build residential area in a commercial area, and you are not allowed to transform a residential into a commercial area. I believe so.
Okay. Let's break it down. So because you started with a question about, if you want to invest, what should be the defining consideration, right? I got it right. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, for a newbie or someone who's already there. For example, we currently have a buyer who's considering a property for investment purpose, and she's trying to use mortgage. At one point, she's thinking, should she do it for investment purpose, or she should just get a place for herself and her family? And she's trying to weigh her options, and that also determine what location she would buy into. Because I'm sure a lot of people buy into some certain locations because they are aware that they will get their interest in real time or as fast as possible, unlike some other locations within the same Lagos state.
The first error that I've seen in real estate investment is to treat real estate investment like gambling. Like I put in 2 naira, I want to get 3 naira, right? The starting point of any investment is to ask, what exactly do I want to achieve? And also to have a bit of more than long-term view. So what is my goal? Your goal is affected by quite a number of things. Age is one of it. Your risk profile, is your risk appetite is one of it. And what do I mean? So, for example, you mentioned somebody that is just starting out. Let's say your income level is also one aspect of it. Let's say this guy is 28 years old, right? Or 30, and he's looking at, oh, he has like 20 years to work. So the question is, if you're building a portfolio, what should be your primary goal at that point? You could say that, oh, you have more time, you can take a bit more risk. So capital appreciation, you want to increase the value of your money over a period of time and edge against inflation. So you want to drop 1 million, and you know that your 1 million will be 10 million in 10 years, right? So capital appreciation is your primary goal. If capital appreciation is your primary goal, what should you do? You are looking for assets that have potential for growth. Now, where are those assets that have potential for growth? They are not at the city center, because the real estate assets within city center are relatively mature, except you are building or you are significantly enhancing. So I'm talking about a retail investor. So it might be better to say, where is their potential for growth? Now, there are quite a number of things you can note, you can consideration that would help you when you want to pick the areas that are likely to grow. The direction of government policy, the direction of commerce, the direction of people, or what you call migration, right? So where people are moving to, where government is moving to, where commerce is moving to, and where infrastructure is evolving or changing or being deployed, right? So for example, if you had spoken to me 2-3 years ago and say, where should I invest? I would tell you that Ibejuleki is a very hot destination. Just make sure the land is okay, right? Because government policy is in that direction. By the way, I don't have any land to sell in Ibejuleki, so I'm just being very objective here. Now, the Ibejuleki is the home to, about 2 or 3 out of 10 major projects that is going to revolutionize Africa. We're talking about the deep sea port. We're talking about the Dangote refinery. Take even the airport that is there. So that is a destination. You're saying, look, in the next 5, 10, 20 years, based on the policy, based on migration, based on commerce, and based on infrastructure, right? So you pick a land in that place and lock it, knowing that it would appreciate it. But let's say that you're a bit older, you're like 48, 50, 60, 55. Now, what is important for you? You have shorter time horizon. So what is important for you if you're in that age range is you have responsibility, is your cash flow. So the assets you're going to be looking at are the assets that you can lease out immediately and start generating a return. So, it doesn't even have to be a house. It could be a land that you can lease out to mechanic, or you can immediately start generating cash. And sometimes we tend to think that, for you to get good rental return, we need to go and buy the expensive properties. That is also a myth that people need to get to know. Let me just quickly digress. I'm sorry, I'm taking so much of your time. Just stop me once.
That's fine. I mean, we're here to learn.
Now, if you look at it, I have a friend that his focus is on Mushin. Now, yes, Mushin. And his return is better than the guy in Lekki Phase 1. And let me explain. You need to calculate that rental return is how much rent you are getting divided by how much you bought the house, right? That's a way of calculating. So when you're talking about rental return, it is not just how much you are getting that is important. The absolute value is the relative value compared to how much you bought it. If you bought a duplex, if you are buying a 3-bedroom flat in Lekki Phase 1, for example, you probably will spend about 200 million. A high-end 2-bedroom, let's say 200 million. Now, let's say that you get a rent on that 200 million of 10 million for a 3-bedroom flat, right?
Okay.
It's possible. Now, 10 divided by 200 is what? Is 5%, right? Now, if you take 45 million or 50 million and you go to Motion, I'm using that example because I provided that advisory point. You will buy a tenement building that has about 30 rooms, right? About 50 million there, about 30 rooms. One, those, self-contained, 30 of it. And then you renovate with another 10 million. Because it's Motion, you don't need to buy Italian tiles. That is 60 million. You will let out that, you spent 60 million, right? 30 rooms. you're letting out each room at what price? Just pick a price. Pick anything. Let's say 400,000 naira. A room,
Okay. The room and parlor.
which is, what you will get. Yeah, a room and parlor times 30. That is how much? That's about 12 million. So what is the rental return for that investment? It's 12 million divided by 60 million, right? So that would give you roughly 20% on your return on your money, right? You can see how what your goal is would affect the kind of investment you will make. But we generally tend to be sentimental when we're considering real estate, right? So the guy in Mushin actually has a higher yield compared to that guy in Lekki one. A one-bedroom somewhere, we have a project in Antonio that you probably, they bought it at 30 million. The people that are using short-let would actually earn about 5-6 million per annum on it. That's nearly 20% return. So the return is key. So let's go back to where we started from. So your goal would determine what type of investment you would get, right? So then you mentioned something about, you mentioned something about mortgage. Now, this is what I tell people, that when there is devaluation and inflation, the kind of thing we have, and it's going to continue for a while before we stabilize, that is the appropriate time to actually get a mortgage. Let me tell you what it means, because the math is very simple. It's amazing that people don't love it. Yes, we know that the interest rate is high, and you can explain why in this kind of economy, the inflation rate is 20-something, interest rate cannot be lower. If things, that's the normal thing. But let me use an example. I generally tell people that even if you have the cash, go put it in Eurobond and then take a mortgage and pay your mortgage gradually. Because if you take a mortgage of 100 million today, in 5 years, that 100 million is probably worth about 30-40 million. So you are paying in cheaper naira, right? Now, if you fix your money, you are earning money. If you fix 2 Eurobond, which are dollar denominated, you're also, getting some return in terms of, the relative value of what you hold. And you see, own the property value is going up, right? If I wish this was a class, I would have shown us the calculation. You will see that at the end of the day, you get more than times 2.5 of the value if you take mortgage compared to, yes, you pay more because you're paying interest, but you're paying cheaper interest. So I generally encourage people to take mortgage, but be disciplined with, with the repayment. Yeah. So that's my advice, really.
All right. Thank you so much. That was very insightful.
I don't know if I'm
my key getaway is your goal will determine the type of investment that you get or that you decide to venture into, I believe, if I get you correctly.
Yeah,
so I have a few questions here in the chat box. I'll take two. Okay, I'll take two for you, one for me. So I have one here that says, how much am I entitled to if my property is demolished, but I didn't commit any violation? That's one. Two, what can actually stop these demolitions because it is scaring away investors? So I think that's your question. I think I should just take the third one now. What's the first thing I should do if my property gets demolished? So those are the three questions. Should I go over them again?
Okay, let's pick them one by one. Let's start with the last one you mentioned.
What's the first thing I should do if my property gets demolished?
First of all, you don't just wake up and you discover that the property has been demolished. There are processes to demolition. One of them is that they will serve you a notice. So when they serve you a notice, you need to engage immediately to see if those the reason you can be there's you can still walk around it if there's a remedial action that can be taken. It has happened to us before, and when we approach and say, look, we got the demolition notice, this is what we've done, this is our permit. Yes, maybe we contravened a bit. There was a bit of disconnection between two parastatal, and we were a victim of that. And they took a look at it and said, okay, you know what, this is what we're going to do. There are penalties. You pay this penalty, right? And then you do this. And then we escaped, right? So the time to start is when you're served that demolition notice, not when the truck is on site to start demolishing your house, right? So let's assume, let's assume that you've been served the notice. You would present your own documents and you will sit with, you see, Lagos State officials are not masquerade, right? You know, they are not like demon that will just come in the night and start demolition. They are people who have houses, who are trying, so a lot of them who are just trying to do what is right as far as they think. They may be wrong sometimes. So to sit down and say, this is what we've gotten, what can we do about it? If it can be remediated, yes, it will be. So now let's now say that the reason why you were given that notice is because there's an overriding public interest. You have your COO, you have your approvals or permit, and you complied. Then what usually would happen is the government will say, look, there's an overriding public interest. We need to clear this area for so. So what we're going to do is to value the property. And then that would determine, that's the basis for compensation. Say, for example, this recent compensation, and there's a valuation that will be done even before that happens.
So how long does this process
do you know, sometimes the government wants to do a road and they go through and discover that, oh, if we do this road, the compensation will be very, very high, right? Will be too heavy, right? If they look at that, they say, no, let's change the direction of the road. Let's take another direction, leave these houses. It happens. It's been done for 4th Mainland Bridge several times. You understand? So it's not like someone just say you don't have a choice, your house will be demolished. It's not generally like that. But you know, because we sensationalize what happens, and then we're trying to demonize the government. Like I said, I'm not a civil servant, I'm a private sector person, but I've engaged across. I'm one of those that should actually demonize them because, you know, I've had that bitter experience. But look at it, when you sit down objectively, you realize that these are things that, you know, can be worked out if we had worked very well, gotten the permits. So they will and then they will compensate this. And it might take some time. But if you feel like there's no overriding public interest, right? You got all your permits, you can go to court, you're going to win.
Interesting. So you can go to
nobody will really, people are very cautious. They won't do it if there's no genuine reason. They won't just bring tractor to site.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think you answered all 3 questions at once, because like the third person asked, so what's the first thing I should do if my property gets demolished? And like you have said, if they don't just wake up in the morning to come and demolish your property, you must have gotten a notice at some point. You must have been pre-informed and all of that. And then you've also spoken to, okay, you did speak to this. Somebody's asking, how much am I entitled to if my property is demolished, but I didn't commit any violation? He's asking for specific, or he or she is asking for specific amount.
You know, just like I said, there will be valuation of the asset even before the demolition. So that's the basis for saying this is the compensation you're going to get.
All right. Thank you so much. And then this question is actually to us at BuyLetLive as a real estate marketplace. This person is asking, what is BuyLetLive actually doing to solve all these issues? Interesting. So I would say, while BuyLetLive, like Dr. Seyi has rightly tried to separate himself, BuyLetLive may not be a government parastatal or affiliated with any government parastatal. We are here to guide you, right? Hold your hand through this process by ensuring that the houses you're buying, the lands you're purchasing have been verified. And so if you're at 100% risk before you come to BuyLetLive, we bring that your risk level to at least 60%. So you know that perhaps what's next will be your paperwork, your documentation, and all of that. So at BuyLetLive, what we do is help you with verification. We provide you with developers like, the likes of Dr. Seyi, and we are sure and certain of what they're building. We provide you with the documents available and necessary for these properties that you can now take for your search. As a matter of fact, before you make any payment for any properties, we ensure that you go through these processes before you make any payments, right? So we do all of that for you. And if you're in the diaspora, which I believe that this set of people, this category of people are also looking to invest back in Nigeria. If you are in the diaspora, don't just go to your family members, like Dr. Shea said. Don't just go to anybody. Speak to professionals. And that's what we are here. We go as far as giving you virtual inspections, verifying documents, developers, and assisting you with mortgage as well. So we basically help you mitigate all of this risk along the line that you're supposed to anticipate, right? And reduce that risk drastically. So in such a way that you're confident and you're rest assured that you're buying into something that would not collapse or be demolished along the line. So I believe that answers that person's question. I'm trying to check for other questions if there's any. Okay. So yeah, moving to the next steps. So now I have learned all of this. I have listened to you. I'm now sure that, okay, I need planning permits and all of that. But what if I'm not buying a land? Because these things are almost tailored to a land, right? What if I'm not buying a land? I'm buying an already completed property, or I'm keen into an off-plan project. Are the documentation different? Do we need something different from what I already have if I were to do a landed property?
Yeah, well, if you were to buy a land, right? Is that what you're saying? If you were to buy a land, what are those things you need to do?
So I'm asking, what are the next steps? So I'm not buying a land because I'm assuming that if anybody is hearing this, they're probably thinking this is for landed properties. These are all the things you need. So I don't want to go through all of these processes. I want to buy from a developer, a house that is already completed, a building project that is ongoing, off plan, because I believe that this person must have gone through all of that rigorous process for me, and I like to key into this. Do I still need any documents to avoid all of this as well?
Yeah, yes, you do, because you need to be sure what you're buying, right? So, but there's a cheat code that I tell people, like, and I tell people that if I want to buy a property and I'm not there, let's say I'm based in Abuja and I want to buy in Lagos, and I really don't have the time and the energy and the knowledge and the skill to go through, the whole process of due diligence, and I'm really determined to buy that property. There are two ways. The first way is to go to professionals, platform like yours, brokerage firm like yours, right? The other one, which is to go through a mortgage bank. I tell the mortgage bank, I want to buy this house, I want a mortgage. Of course, they're going to charge me some admin fee, but what I know is a mortgage bank will do all the due diligence because they know that they are the one they're the one providing the money, right? So they will do all the due diligence. But let's say you're not taking these two routes, you want to do it yourself. You want to make sure, first of all, that the land belongs to the person that is building or to the partner of the person that is building, that can build there legally. Number two, you want to be sure that the person has all the permits or has kickstarted the process of the permit. You would see they have the screen drawing, they have the assessment, whether they've paid or not. At least you can know that they've started. And then you also want to be sure that they are complying with what is in the drawing. You can ask to see the floor plan. You can ask to see the layout based on their screen drawing. So once you go through all these ones, you can relatively be satisfied that yes, the land is there. Yes, they have the planning permit on the process. Yes, they are compliant. And then you monitor throughout the process of that construction. For me, I think the due diligence is much more difficult. It's even the due diligence you would do on the land, because land is a bit more complicated and straightforward building that is started, but most people don't think so. They don't know. Even professionals or developers make that mistake sometimes. So but if the existing house or if it's a developer Does it have the CFO or the title document? It doesn't have to be CFO. It can be a deed of lease. It can be a deed of assignment, a governor's consent. It can be whatever it is. It can be a JV agreement. Do they have the permit, or are they in the process of getting the permit? And then are they complying with the process? Those are the three things, baseline.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Seyi. We have two more questions here, but I believe you've spoken to one of them. Somebody's asking if there's a timeline given when you get a notice for demolition. I think we've had you answer that already. And someone is asking, right, real estate planning is taking an amazing turn in Lagos. Who are the brains involved?
Let me say this, the first brain involved is the Ministry of Fiscal Planning and Urban Development and EGIS and all those things. They are the primary drivers of it. But one thing I'm very sure is that, and I've been around a bit, Lagos has a very, very solid planning part of administration. So if you go around, there is Ekpe master plan, there is mainland master plan, there is island master plan. There's quite a lot of master plan. So you may just want to buy those copies, and they're available if you go to fiscal planning office to buy. As cheap as 5K, 10K, you'll be able to buy some of those master plans. So you know exactly what is in the offering, right? So it's Lagos State primarily.
Interesting. And I believe developers also play a key role in this as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They do.
Okay. Okay, I have one question here. This is for BuyLetLive. This is for me, actually. Say, what does BuyLetLive do? Please tell us your services and how you operate. All right. So before we started this, I introduced us. BuyLetLive is a real estate marketplace that connects buyers and sellers. And by buyers and sellers, whether you want to buy a property, you want to rent, you want to lease, BuyLetLive is your ideal marketplace to do all of that. So on our platforms, we have vetted developers and agents that we can refer you to in your real estate journey. So if you are looking to invest in real estate by proxy or directly, whether as a Nigerian in Nigeria or a Nigerian in the diaspora, BuyLetLive is here to assist you through this process. We also have other additional services like inspections. We help you inspect your property, especially for Nigerians who are not in Nigeria. You are probably in the UK, US, Germany, and you would like to buy a property, or you've already started this development, but you do not have trusted hands to help you watch over, do the project management and all of that. It's part of our service. So project management, project monitoring, virtual inspection, property sale, FX, and so on and so forth. So those are the services we offer, all in the line of real estate. So if you would like to reach us, or you'd like to consult further with us, you can reach out to us at info@buyletlive.com, and or our phone number, our customer care line will be dropped in the chat box. You can reach us on that line. Or better still, if you are the person who asked this question, you can share your email address and phone number in the chat section, and we will definitely contact you. Thank you very much.
All right. Do we have other questions? It's while we're waiting for those questions, one of the things I just want to touch on also is, because for a lot of people, buying land would be the beginning of investment for most people, right? So the due diligence on land is pretty much more intense, and because that is where you have most of the fraud within the real estate industry going on. So you need to be very careful. The first thing, if you want to buy land, is to understand the history of the land. Most people never actually get to that point, because I know that if you don't, you may end up regretting it. I've seen instances where somebody bought the land, even got a CO, but obviously the land was fraudulently acquired by somebody else. And by the way, that you have a governor's consent does not mean that the land is genuinely yours, right? You can get a governor's consent and, the land is not yours.
Thank you.
No. A governor's consent is equivalent to a CO, right? Because
Yeah.
Doing a deed, governors has assent. Now, that you have a governor consent does not mean that, because it's not government that will go and be searching and to tell you that the person that gave you the deed is the owner of the land. A governor's consent simply means that governor is consenting to the transaction between the two parties. So it's possible to have a registered deed of assignment and you're still chased from that land. The other thing, so you need to understand the history too. You need to know the land you're buying. Send somebody, get a specialist to help you look at it, get a surveyor to help you look at it. I've had instances where we wanted to buy a land and they took us to that land. By the time they gave us the survey, the register survey, the land in the register survey was nearly 1 or 2 kilometers away from where they took us.
Wow.
Right? So, and then there's the traditional history of land is also very key because it might belong to another family and whatever it is. So now, so you do your physical inspection to be sure of the nature of the land. Then you take your coordinates from that land. You go to chart it. When you are charting it, you are checking: is it under acquisition? Is it a committed land? Is there any plan by the government to do stuff on that land? And then you now take the survey, make sure it's registered. You do that verification. And then when they give you the title document, I encourage people to buy more of titled land, particularly if you are not experienced. You take the title to lands registry to verify that it belongs to that person that wants to sell it to you, or there's a connection, nexus between the person that's selling it to you and the original title holder, right? And then once you do that, you can relatively feel, okay, it's good to go before you take that leap. If it's not titled, then you need to be sure that you can process the title documents is something that is approvable. Otherwise, you could also have a problem. There are quite a number of lands that are being sold today that you won't be able to perfect.
All right, interesting. Thank you very much.
I don't want to be mentioning the specific areas. I'm not sure that will be fair.
That will not be fair. I think you should let's wait. When people are ready, they will come to us and then we'll be able to advise them accordingly.
Cool.
And you talked about the title documents. Is it the same body responsible for verifying a CFO? Because someone is asking how they can identify a fake CFO.
The only way you can identify a fake CFO is to go to land registry and show them and give them and tell them to give you a certified true copy of the one on file. I've seen fakes, and that is much better looking than the authentic documents.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And then do you pay for this?
To do the search, yes, there's a fee, but it's very small, maybe 20,000 or so, thereabout, plus minus. Yeah, go through a lawyer, preferably.
Okay. Thank you so much for that advice. So in essence, from what I've gathered, investing in real estate in Lagos is still safe, provided you do your due diligence and get your correct papers.
That's correct. Not only that, Lagos is about the best place to actually invest in real estate today in Nigeria. Today.
I agree with you.
Yeah, today.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Seyi. This has been very insightful. And thank you all for joining us for this 1 hour period. I am sure you've learned and picked a thing or two from here. And if you have any further questions, again, you can please reach out to us at info@buyletlive.com, or you can share your contact details and we would reach out to you in case you have any plans of real estate investments. I'm sure you're here because you have plans of real estate investments. So to carry on this conversation, you can reach out to us on those contacts I have mentioned. And before we go, Dr. Seyi, any last words for us?
Well, I think the advice is go through professionals. That's the first thing. When you're doing it, spend the money, to patronize that. And then number two is that no matter what you do, you need to have real estate as part of your portfolio. There are 3 portfolios generally that would withstand inflation, devaluation, and the likes. Real estate is one of them. Commodities is another thing. Equities is another thing. So you must actually have a plan to add that to your portfolio. And then lastly, for those who have made mistake, you want to actually ask yourself, what was the mistake? And that's one thing that I have always done. You make your mistake and then you go back and say, what mistake did I make? And then you try to get it done better. If you can have that philosophy when it comes to real estate investment, you will make your money eventually.
All right. You heard
All right.
directly from Dr. Seyi. And with this, we have come to the end of this knowledge sharing session. Trust us to bring more insightful sessions your way with, of course, more experienced professionals in the real estate industry. Okay, so somebody's asking for our customer care contact. I'm going to be sharing that in the chat box right away. Well, with this, I believe we have come to an end of this knowledge sharing section, and I hope it was value for your time and it was insightful for everyone who joined us. And I'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone who joined and took their time to join. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Seyi, for taking out time to be here with us, sharing your wealth of knowledge for free. We hope to have you one of these times again.
I don't think I told you I wasn't going to charge. It's just that I'm not saying.
You're a friend of the house.
Okay. I did say I wasn't going to charge. I'm sure Mudukwe is preparing to hear the invoice value.
All right. I'll see you all again. Have a good night rest.